The first evening after moving into the 3-bedroom apartment, I settled in and called my good buddy Daniel to thank him. His wife, Julia, answered the phone. Her voice was bright and full of laughter as she said she'd come over to check on me soon. Sure enough, Julia arrived not long after, carrying an expensive bottle of red wine. She said it was to celebrate my new home. Sister minus and minus law, I called out, scratching my head. Before I could even get the words of thanks out, she swayed unsteadily toward me. I quickly reached out to steady her. She leaned right into my arms, soft and fragrant. In that instant, heat surged through my veins. Sister minus and minus law, what's wrong? Normally I could talk smoothly, but facing this warm, sweet beauty, I suddenly found myself stumbling over my words. Oh, I probably skipped dinner, feeling a little dizzy, she murmured. Her perfume swirled around my nose, making my heart itch unbearably. At that moment, I was in serious trouble. My college buddy came from an ordinary family and was nothing special himself, yet somehow he had landed such a stunning wife, and she was rich, too. They had only known each other for 2 months before rushing into marriage. I had envied him so much. When I first asked to stay for a while and begged him to help me find a place, he hadn't been too willing. In the end, after I wore him down with persistent pleading, he agreed to rent me this spare apartment of theirs. As I held Julia in that minute, I cursed Daniel in my heart over and over. With her looks, fair skin, beautiful face, slim waist, delicate features, shapely hips and long legs, how had she ever fallen for her? Feeling the warmth of her body pressed against mine, I quickly straightened her up. No matter how desperately tempted I was, this was my best friend's wife. I couldn't betray her. I had my principles. I pulled away and went over to my suitcase, rummaging through it to push away those dirty thoughts. But in my haste, I accidentally knocked over a roll of toilet paper. It unspooled across the floor. As I scrambled to pick it up, Julia slithered against me like a water snake, wrapping her arms around my neck. Her soft voice brushed against my ear. So much toilet paper, Ethan. Looks like you have quite the stamina. Her breath carried a teasing warmth that tickled my ear. The itch spread straight to my heart, and my whole face burned crimson. I quickly pulled away. If this continued, something was definitely going to happen. Sister minus and minus law, have some of this. I handed her the biscuits I was holding, unable to meet her eyes. Don't call me Sister minus and minus law. Call me Julia. She took the biscuit, her slender, pale fingers grazing mine. The touch was cool yet maddening. I felt a certain part of my body swelling rapidly. This couldn't go on. I needed to calm down. Sister minus and minus law, please don't. Daniel is my best brother. Julia's face showed a flicker of displeasure, but she still stood and walked toward the door. At the last moment, she turned back and gave me a smile that pierced straight into my soul. Wait until you're ready. Then he'll come again. After Julia left, I hurriedly shut the door. That night, the itch in my heart was unbearable. As expected, I had a shameful, lust-filled dream. When I woke the next morning, guilt flooded my mind. Lusting after my brother's wife, I was truly despicable. While taking a walk downstairs, I ran into the neighbor lady from the floor below. We had exchanged greetings when I moved in. She seemed like a warm, honest-hearted older sister type. Seeing me, she looked a little embarrassed. Out for a stroll, young man? She replied politely, but the more I looked at her expression, the more something seemed off. I couldn't help asking, "What's wrong?" "None? Is there something I can help with?" The older lady glanced around, then leaned closer and whispered, "Young man, could you keep it down at night when you're taking care of business? I have a child at home." I was stunned. Last night I had only had a dream. How could that be? The moment I thought about it, the dream flooded back. Oh, Julia's proud figure and smooth, tender skin still sent electric currents through me even now. The woman who had come downstairs last night did look a bit like Julia. The older lady said it in a probing tone. I couldn't tell if it was a question or a sigh. It's Julia, right? I'm renting their apartment. After all, I answered casually. Unexpectedly, as soon as she heard that, her face turned pale. She backed away as if I were a plague carrier and hurried off. I shook my head, full of confusion, and returned to the apartment. That same night, Julia came knocking again. After nightfall, I had just finished showering and was about to make a bowl of instant noodles when there was a knock at the door. I tensed up instinctively. Peeking through the peephole, I saw Julia wearing a seductive set of pajamas, with only a thin sheer layer over them. In her hand was another bottle of wine. I couldn't make out the brand, but it was clearly imported liquor. My heart jolted. Imported liquor usually had a high alcohol content. Julia stood there with that confident stance. Clearly no lightweight when it came to drinking, otherwise she wouldn't have shown up alone with a bottle like that. I hesitated, afraid to open the door. What if I got drunk and something happened? Instead, I stayed seated on the sofa, figuring she'd knock a few times, get no answer, and leave. But she didn't. She pressed her fingerprint on the lock and let herself right in. I froze on the sofa, watching Julia step through the doorway. A draft from the hallway lifted the thin gauze of her dress, giving teasing glimpses of her full breasts. She looked radiant, full of life. Honestly, if she weren't my buddy's wife, I wouldn't have held back. When she spotted me, a soft smile bloomed on her face. "Why are you home?" But wouldn't open the door for me. I completely lost my composure. Explaining felt wrong. Not explaining felt worse. I could only stand there dumbly in front of the sofa, staring as she walked toward me. Julia wasn't shy at all. She came right up beside me, her long fingers freshly manicured tracing across my cheek in a slow, crossing stroke. "Why are you staring at me like that? Don't you know it makes a girl shy?" Her nails sent an unbearable itch racing through me. I quickly stepped back. "Sis, where's Daniel?" I fumbled for my phone to call her, but my hands were shaking. She laughed and snatched it away. "Sheth on a business trip. It's just me at home tonight, and I'm so bored. Come have a drink with me." I stayed silent, too cautious to reply. Every word I said could become evidence against me later. Her perfume wrapped around me, and my eyes kept drifting over her alluring figure. I was barely holding on. "What's wrong? You can't handle your liquor, can you?" Julia leaned in even closer, almost pressing against me. "Of course I can." I swallowed hard, glancing at the bottle in her hand. It looked like whiskey 40+%, from what I remembered. If the two of us finished that whole bottle, who knew what might happen? "Sis, look, it's really bad timing. I have to work overtime tonight." Before I could finish, Julia threw herself into my arms. I lost my balance and fell back onto the sofa. Her hair brushed back and forth under my chin. Every inch of my body was tingling, unbearably so. But I knew I had to hold back. Daniel wasn't home tonight. Maybe I could let myself go just this once. Her fingers wandered across my chest. With the last shred of reason I had, I pushed her away. "No. Sis, I can't do this to Daniel." My second rejection didn't anger her. Instead, she pressed closer and made a new offer. "If you give in to me, I'll waive the rent and everything else." God, she really knew how to torment a broke single guy like me. While I wavered, Julia got up, went to the kitchen cabinet, and took out 2 glasses. She somehow produced a pack of braised snacks too. She poured the liquor and handed me a glass. "Ethan, as long as you make me feel good, everything else is negotiable. I don't need the money anyway." I reluctantly took the glass, still hesitating. "If you agree, then empty this cup." Her eyes were so seductive they nearly dragged my self-control away. I took the glass, clinked it against hers, and downed it in one go. "What a man. I like that about you." Julia leaned back into my arms. "I wonder if you're this manly in bed too." The sticky sweetness in her voice shattered my last defense. It felt like invisible hands were pulling me deeper into her soft, fragrant embrace. I pushed her away one more time, poured myself another drink straight from the bottle, and gulped it down. Then I scooped Julia up in my arms and carried her toward the bedroom. Strangely, even though she looked so voluptuous, she felt light as a feather in my arms, like holding a cat or a small dog. I tossed her onto the bed, shrugged off my jacket, and climbed over her, pinning her beneath me. The alcohol was hitting now. Her face looked hazy and flickering in the light. I glanced up at the ceiling lamp, but Julia wouldn't let me lose focus. "Pay attention. Show me what you've got." With those words, there was no escaping what happened that night. Afterward, I can't remember how many rounds we went. I only knew I woke up when the morning sun was already high, my whole body aching as if someone had pulled out every tendon and bone. I'd always thought the kind of soreness described in stories only happened to women. Never imagined it could hit a man too. Maybe I really had been single for too long. I sat up, rubbed my throbbing head, and turned to look beside me. Julia had already left the apartment at some point. Fragments of last night flashed through my mind, some sharp, some blurred. She was an absolute master in bed, guiding me through unknown pleasures the whole time. I had enjoyed it beyond words, even feeling a kind of tragic heroism in the idea of dying in her arms. I forced myself out of bed and went to the living room. Before leaving, Julia had already cleared away the bottles and snacks from the table. Staring at the empty room, reality suddenly crashed over me. I had slept with my buddy's wife last night. If there was a hell, I was headed straight for the mountain of knives and the sea of fire. I sat on the sofa, guilt gnawing at me more with every passing second. I should call Daniel, I thought, and test the waters first. This was the first time I'd ever done something so shameless. The sound of the phone ringing hammered against my chest. I rehearsed different ways to bring it up, but the line just kept ringing. No one picked up. When had Daniel turned into such a workaholic? She had been gone so long on this trip. Forget it. I needed to clear my head and wash away some of this guilt. The previous translated part ended with workaholic. She had been gone so long on this trip. Forget it. I needed to clear my head and wash away some of this guilt. I didn't know what was wrong with me either. I always felt like I couldn't quite catch my breath. I decided to go downstairs for some fresh air. The moment I stepped into the courtyard, I ran into the older lady from the floor below again. "Hey there." I greeted her first this time, hoping to avoid the awkwardness from last time. The older lady looked me over with a serious expression, her eyes filled with unease. "What's wrong, young man? You don't look right." I nodded quickly, feeling embarrassed. I hadn't even washed my face. I rubbed the corner of my eye with my hand. "You've got a really dark complexion," she said gravely. "Dark circles, black lines around your eyes. You should see a master about this. After all, the house you're living in. I used to do my morning exercises there, but I stopped. I brushed her off in my mind. These middle-aged women were always so superstitious. No wonder their husbands couldn't stand them. I ignored her and headed to the small store to buy something to eat. Just then, my college roommate Emma called. As soon as I picked up, she asked if I had arrived in City A. I said yes. She mentioned that Daniel was also in City A, and I told her I knew. Then Emma suddenly asked, "Why didn't I see you at Daniel's funeral 2 weeks ago?" I froze completely. When did that happen? Daniel was dead? Emma kept talking, recalling the funeral from half a month ago. How could you not know? I hung up the phone immediately. A cold sweat broke out across my back. Even if there was something strange going on, this was way too horrifying. I returned to the apartment in a daze and sat on the sofa, trying to recall every detail. The moment I looked up, I noticed a door between the 2 bedrooms that had never been there before. Since I moved in, I had never seen a door connecting the 2 rooms. From under the door came a strange, foul odor, almost like rotting stench, something indescribably eerie. I rubbed my eyes hard and slapped my cheeks. making sure it wasn't a hallucination. I walked closer and saw a shiny lock hanging on the door. I reached out and gripped it firmly in my hand. It was real. The lock looked antique, the kind that needed a long, old hidden there, old man's fashion key to open. I searched every drawer in the house but couldn't find any key. Driven by overwhelming curiosity, I had to open that door. Maybe the truth I was looking for was inside. I couldn't wait any longer. I grabbed a hammer and smashed the lock to pieces with heavy blows. The door swung open into complete darkness. I flicked the light switch by the entrance, but nothing happened, so I turned on the flashlight on my phone and followed the weak beam, searching for the source of the stench. Not far ahead, I spotted a platform with a rotting fox placed neatly on top. I pinched my nose and tried to move closer to examine it. Suddenly, there was urgent knocking at the door. The insistent sound forced me to step out of the room for now. When I opened the door, it was Julia. This time she was surprisingly polite and didn't just use her fingerprint to let herself in. "What were you doing?" Julia asked, her expression tinged with anger. I was doing anything," I stammered. The thought of having smashed the lock on her door made me panic inside. I was afraid she would demand compensation. Seeing how quietly I answered, Julia quickly softened her tone and turned her anger into a smile. "Why did it take you so long to open the door for me?" I pointed behind me. I just smelled something strange coming from that small room. I struck first, hoping to put her on the defensive so she wouldn't accuse me of damaging the furnishings. "Which room?" Julia asked calmly. I raised my hand and gestured behind me. "That one." The moment I turned my head to follow my own gesture, the room had completely vanished. Even the broken lock I had smashed was gone. It felt like seeing a ghost in broad daylight. I scratched my head in confusion. Before I could figure it out, Julia wrapped her arms around my neck. "You're even having hallucinations from missing me so much." I hadn't intended to entertain Julie at all. My mind was nowhere near that. But she coiled around me like a water snake, and once again I gave in, just like last time. We tumbled together in passion until evening. When I finally got up to get dressed, Julia lay on the bed and said softly, "Why don't you just be mine? You won't have to worry about living expenses or rent. If you agree, I'll arrange for you to move into a much bigger place tomorrow. Your only job will be to take care of me, to serve me well." She smiled slyly, her whole body seeming to sparkle with hooks that caught every hair on my skin and pulled me in. A man should never be a slave, unless the offer includes room and board. In this tug-minus of minus war, I lost again. It was that I was lazy or greedy. Right after Julia made her offer, I received a call from my mom saying my dad was seriously ill. Even if Julia waived the rent, I still wouldn't have extra money for my dad's treatment. I couldn't just watch her suffer without helping. That wouldn't make me human. Julia was incredibly thoughtful, almost as if she had known in advance that I needed money. She got out of bed, pulled out a bag of cash from somewhere, and handed it to me. "Here's 100,000. Use it first." I looked at her in shock. "How did you know I needed money?" Julia gave me a sly look. "Your phone volume was too loud." Seeing her kind and innocent expression, I pulled her into a tight embrace, accepted the bag of money, and held her close. In my arms, Julia kept whispering to me that once my father came back from her check-minus-up, she would move me into a bigger apartment. That night felt strange. Julia didn't stay over. As I stared at the money she had given me, my mind grew strangely clear. An inexplicable chill seemed to fill the apartment, and that faint, eerie smell drifted into my nostrils again. I thought about going back to check the door that had suddenly vanished, but my body felt too heavy and weak. Dizzy and exhausted, I fell asleep. The next day I didn't wake up until the sun was high in the sky. In a daze, I grabbed a ride home. Walking along the village path, the bag of money in my hand seemed to grow lighter with every step, yet my head remained foggy and unclear. When I got off the ride, I ran into the village's Welsh teller, old Victor. Her house was only 50 meters from mine. On the way back together, He kept glancing at me sideways for a long time, muttering something under his breath. I had no interest in listening. I just wanted to get home quickly to see my father. But old Victor suddenly blocked my path. "Ethan, tell Uncle Victor the truth. Have you met someone recently?" I waved my hand and didn't admit anything. How could I possibly confess something like that to him? That I had become someone's lover and taken money to treat my father's illness? "There's a heavy black around you," he said. "You better tell me the truth while there's still time." I didn't believe a word of his fortunes for our unstelling nonsense, so I smiled and replied, "Uncle Victor, it really is still early. Look, your own forehead is dark and your face is pale. That's not a good sign either. Don't take it lightly, young man." His words hit me like a needle, suddenly clearing my mind a little, like waking from sleep paralysis in the middle of the afternoon and finally regaining awareness. Still, I refused to confess anything to him. Old Victor stepped closer and grabbed my hand. "There's a dark shadow behind you. Do you know that? If this goes on much longer, it will destroy you." I looked up at the sky. The sun was blazing overhead. "Uncle Victor, the sun is shining so brightly. Everyone has a shadow on a day like this. I'm afraid what you've encountered isn't human," he said, seeing that I still didn't believe him. Old Victor slowly let go of my hand. Even so, he kept muttering to himself as if reciting some scripture. I paid him no more attention and continued walking home. After turning the last corner, I stood at my front gate. My mother had locked it from the inside, and I didn't have a key. I could only shout, "Mom, I'm back." The moment my voice faded, she came out from the inner room holding a stainless steel basin. As she got closer, I saw it was filled to the brim with a dark red liquid. Before I could even ask what she was doing, she splashed the entire contents over my head. The moment I smelled it, I realized it was a basin of black dog blood, drenched in the sticky, fishy liquid for no reason at all. Anger surged through me. "Mom, what are you doing?" "It's me." I set down the bag of money, wiped the blood from my face, and glared at her. But my mother ignored me completely. She picked up a willow branch, dipped it into a bowl of some unknown liquid, and began slapping and whipping it across my body. Drops of the water landed on my lips, tasting sour and bitter. "Mom, what are you doing? What is all this?" I tried to push past her to see my father, but she gripped my arm tightly. "Don't move." Her eyes were dull, yet she stared at me fiercely, as if I were a madman. "Mom, have you lost your mind?" "Ethan, you'd better not move. Old Victor just called me and said you're carrying unclean energy. Don't bring it into your father. Wait here. He'll be over soon to cleanse you." Her tone was so heavy that I had no choice but to stand still and let her continue her ritual on me. Before long, old Victor really did arrive, carrying a fire pan in his hand. He waved it around me while the midday sun beat down fiercely. Flames and thick black smoke rose from the pan. Whatever he had burned in it made my head spin even more. "Are we done yet?" I snapped at him impatiently. "Don't speak." My mother immediately scolded me. She then took a piece of yellow talisman paper from old Victor, disappeared into the kitchen, and soon returned carrying a bowl of something. "Drink this talisman water, Ethan," old Victor said with a smile on his face but none in his eyes. The sight made me uncomfortable. "I'm not drinking it. How do I know what you've mixed in there?" Without waiting for their reply, I tried to walk away. Although I didn't believe in this kind of thing, I had always shown old Victor some respect. After all, there are all kinds of people in the world, and some need professionals like him for peace of mind. But today, the way they were carrying on with their rituals around me filled me with an inexplicable irritation. This restlessness swept over me like a sudden wind, blowing straight into my heart. I had never felt such anxious unease before. The moment I stepped into the courtyard and tried to enter the main room, my mother rushed over and blocked my path. "Only after you drink this talisman water can you go inside," she insisted stubbornly. I had never seen my mother so stern with me before. In the past, She had always been gentle and accommodating, giving into whatever I wanted. What had gotten into her today? "If you don't drink it, I'll kneel right here," she said, her face expressionless. I had no choice but to compromise. Closing my eyes and tilting my head back, I swallowed the bowl of talisman water in one gulp. Only then was I allowed into the inner room to see my father. He lay in bed, his face deathly pale and his lips turning purple, the clear warning signs of an impending heart attack. I immediately asked my mother why she hadn't taken him to the hospital. I told my mother that we had no money for the hospital and that even if we went, it wouldn't cure him. My father himself said it would be a waste of money. I prepared to hand over the bag of cash Julia had given me, intending for my mother to use it to get my father to the hospital. But suddenly a strange surge of qi shot through my stomach, twisting and churning wildly. I had no choice but to rush to the toilet. When I came back out and lifted the bag in front of my mother again, I noticed it felt lighter. "These should be enough to treat Dad," I said. My mother took the bag from my hands, opened it, and looked inside. Her eyes turned bloodshot as she glared at me. "You unfilial son," she shouted in fury and hurled the bag back at me. I failed to catch it. The money spilled out everywhere, scattering across the floor in a colorful flutter. I looked down and saw that every bill was nothing but funeral money bright, printed paper notes meant for the dead. "Are you hoping your father dies soon?" My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. At that moment, her pupillid suddenly cleared, as if waking from a fog. Julia's eager seduction, the mysteriously vanishing utility room, the meaningful words from the neighbor lady, and everything Emma had told me, all of it rushed back into my head at once. This was all too strange, too dreamlike. Now that I was awake, it was time to confront Julia and demand the truth. Before I left, I told my mother about all the bizarre things that had been happening lately. Worried I might get into more trouble, she begged the half-char once more and obtained a protective charm folded into a small triangle. She insisted I wear it around my neck. I couldn't refuse her, so I let her hang it on me. By the time I reached home, it was already evening. I had just stepped back into the villa when Julia came looking for me before I could even call her. I immediately launched into a tirade, demanding to know why she had given me a bag of funeral money when she knew my father was gravely ill. Was she deliberately bringing bad luck on my family? Julia didn't argue right away. A flicker of confusion crossed her eyes, but it vanished in an instant. She smiled and gently took my arm, speaking in a soft, cowcasus voice. I was in such a hurry that I must have grabbed the wrong bag. King Ming Festival is coming soon. I was preparing offerings for the graves. As I felt the softness of her breasts press against me, most of my anger melted away. She then twisted her body closer, nestling into my arms, her eyes filled with unmistakable longing. I knew exactly what she craved, but at that moment, I still hadn't reached the point where I wanted to release that tension. "Julia," I suddenly stopped her. I voiced the doubt that had been gnawing at me. "Victor the half-Cole's words echoed in my ears. What you encounter may not be human. Let me tell you the truth." "Ethan," Julia said, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Daniel was in a car accident half a month ago. Shess dead." With that, she began wiping her tears. Her words matched what Emma had told me about the funeral, so I stopped doubting her. Yet somehow, as I looked at Julia now, she felt both strangely distant and unnervingly false. "Then how come nothing happened to you? Weren't you together?" Buoyed by the protective charm my mother had given me, I began pressing her with questions. "I was with her," Julia blurted out, as if she had rehearsed the answer long ago. Before I could respond, she continued, "Do you actually want something bad to happen to me? I love you, Ethan." She drew so close that our breaths intertwined. After years of being single since birth, hearing a woman confess her love to me hit with overwhelming force. When I looked into her innocent, wide eyes, glistening as they gazed into mine, I felt myself yielding once again. That familiar, intoxicating pull wrapped around me. I pulled Julia into my arms, pressing her face against my chest. Suddenly, she stiffened, struggling free from my embrace. Covering one cheek with her hand, her eyes reddened as she pointed at my chest. "What are you hiding there?" Only then did I remember the protective charm. I pulled out the small triangular packet my mother had insisted I wear and waved it in front of her. "It's just superstitious nonsense. Nothing important. Ethan." "Throw it away," she urged. "I'm allergic to that kind of replica. It makes me break out in little red spots all over and ruins my beauty." Once again, she fixed me with that captivating gaze. Like someone under a spell, I obeyed without thinking, unable to consider anything else. I tossed the charm far away. Only then did Julia lower the hand covering her nose and mouth. Satisfied, she wrapped her arms around my neck. "I've wanted you so badly today," she whispered. She kissed my lips and pushed me down onto the sofa. My blood surged once more, but I could clearly feel that my energy and stamina were far weaker than before. It didn't take long before I surrendered completely. Julia said nothing about it. In the middle of the night, she left as usual, never staying over. I was jolted awake by knocking at the door. I wondered why Julia hadn't simply used her fingerprint to unlock it. When I sat up and looked toward the entrance, I heard Danielle's voice calling my name. All sleepiness vanished in an instant. Outside the window, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The storm was about to break. Both Emma and Julia had said Daniel died in a car accident. So, who was the person standing outside my door, calling my name? Ethan. Ethan. The knocking grew heavier, one blow after another. I stood there in helpless panic. Was this person human or a ghost? Had they come for revenge because of what happened with Julia? I looked up in a panic, only to find the front door creaking open by itself, the chain still locked. A gust of icy night wind rushed in. In a flash of lightning, I saw Daniel's face covered in deep scratches. One arm hung by a single tendon, swinging violently in the wind. His whole body was drenched in blood. He lurched into the room like a walking corpse. I'm not a coward, but with thunder crashing outside and a figure like that forcing its way into my home, anyone would be terrified. Without thinking, I bolted into the bedroom and slammed the door shut, locking it. As expected, Daniel started pounding on the bedroom door, muttering something incoherent, repeatedly calling out Julia's name. I knew she couldn't accept it. She had only been gone a short while, and her good brother had already hooked up with her wife. "Daniel, I'm sorry. I'll burn more paper money for you. Just forgive me, okay?" Daniel didn't respond. After a long silence, the noise outside stopped completely. I cautiously cracked open the bedroom door, only to see Daniel standing right there, motionless, staring blankly at me without making a sound. My legs gave out and I collapsed to the floor. Then she called my name again, Ethan, ragging the sound out long and low. Her mouth never moved. I had no idea where the voice was coming from. You're dead, aren't you?" This was the first time I had ever seen a ghost, and it was my own former brother. The shock to both my eyes and my mind was overwhelming. "Yes." Daniel's words came out with great effort. His expression twisted in pain, as if he were struggling to hold himself together. "Those paper offerings, I changed them. All I wanted to do was run. Daniel didn't chase me. She just kept murmuring, 'Julia, be careful of Julia.' I didn't have time to think about what she meant. I sprinted straight for the front door. The moment I pulled it open, Julia was standing right there on the threshold. With a charming smile in her beautiful eyes, she stepped inside. When she saw Daniel, she looked surprised but remained strangely calm. That was when it finally hit me: Daniel wasn't human. And Julia definitely wasn't either. If even a grown man like me had gone weak in the knees from the sight of Daniel, how could Julia stay so composed? Fragments of forgotten memories flooded back, frame by frame, especially that storage room that had appeared out of nowhere and then vanished, along with the fox corpse inside it. I instinctively glanced toward the spot where the door had been. This time it was crystal clear. The door stood right between the two bedrooms. The moment my gaze shifted that way, Julia quickly moved in front of me, staring up with wide, sticky-minus sweet eyes. Ethan, I really missed you. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Right in front of my brother, she was openly trying to seduce me. Even if Daniel wasn't human anymore, at least treat me like one. I glanced at Daniel. Her face had gone completely expressionless. Her mouth opened and closed, forming words. When I looked closer, her eyes were locked fiercely on Julia's back. Brother, listen to me. I pushed Julia aside and stepped toward her. No, Daniel said, her voice strained. Look at her eyes. I could feel that Daniel was using every last ounce of ghostly strength she had. The moment Julia heard those words, she spun around and began struggling violently with her. Seeing this, I tried to flee outside, but Julia called out to me, Ethan. I forgot Daniel's warning and turned to look at her. That single glance was enough. My entire body froze again. If she hadn't been busy dealing with Daniel, I might have lost control right then and there. Julia quickly locked the front door. There was no way out anymore. I could only stand there rigid. Fortunately, the effect didn't last long. Soon I could move again, though my mind still felt foggy. That was when I realized why I had believed Julia and fallen so completely. I had been bewitched by her gaze. I looked back at Daniel. She was still locked in combat with her. Her uninjured arm clung desperately to Julia. Enraged, Julia revealed her true form, her beautiful face flickering rapidly between a fox and an old woman. The sight chilled me to the bone. Burn it. Daniel's voice came again. I didn't know what she wanted me to burn, but Master Victor's instructions flashed through my mind. That's right, the lucky pouch. The one I had thrown aside while getting intimate with Julia earlier. I rushed to where I remembered dropping it and found it right by the bedroom door. This time, superstition or not, I slipped it over my neck without hesitation. Instantly, my clouded mind cleared completely. That eerie door appeared plainly before my eyes. So Daniel wanted me to burn whatever was inside that room. The lock was still broken from the last time I had been conscious. I pushed the door open. A thick, nauseating stench rolled out, so strong I could barely breathe. Behind me, Julia noticed immediately. She roared at me, freeing one hand from the fight. Her fox face grew even more distinct. Before I could reach the fox corpse, Julia had already finished off Daniel. In a blur, she appeared right in front of me. Facing a monster like this, I had none of Master Victor's skills. I could only clutch the lucky pouch against my chest. Don't come any closer. Julia didn't change back into her beautiful form. Her fox face grew darker and more sinister, her slanted eyes boring into mine. I knew she was trying to bewitch me again. But with the lucky pouch, she couldn't. She realized it too. While she was figuring out her next move, I threw myself at her with everything I had, wrapping my arms around her just like Daniel had done, embracing death to find life. Maybe this. Julia let out a blood-curdled scream the moment the little finger touched her. She thrashed violently, tearing herself free. By the time she broke away, the finger's power had almost completely drained. I thought it was over, but the next second, I watched in horror as the burn marks on her chest slowly faded and healed. That fox, minus-like face twisted into a sinister smile once more. You really thought a pathetic little finger could defeat me? With my last defense gone, I fell into utter despair. Fox spirit, I said, I'll give you one final chance. You're a once coinus and a sunry century specimen of pure masculine vigor. No matter how much you expend, you can always recover. Come with me. You won't lose out, and I'll make sure you feel incredible pleasure. She continued, her voice dripping with temptation. If I hadn't stumbled upon Daniel's graduation photo, I never would have seen your true potential from your face. What a coincidence that you came looking for me yourself. Now I finally understand why Daniel refused to rent the room to me at the beginning. Achia's been protecting you all along. I simply closed my eyes and gave my answer. Fine. Daniel's voice rang out at once urgent, regretful, laced with brotherly loyalty. I heard every word deep in my heart. Really? He leapt forward and hooked his arms around my neck, showing not the slightest doubt toward a prime specimen like me. The stench of decay in the room had grown overwhelming. The lighter I'd kept hidden in my pocket was finally going to serve its purpose. At this point, there was only one way out: to perish together with her. I slowly fished the lighter from my trousers, flicked it open, and tossed the flame onto the public altar. The rotting fox corpse burst into roaring flames instantly. Julia began to panic and stamp her feet, but it was already too late. The highly concentrated putrid gas fed the fire, and the entire room turned into a blazing inferno in seconds. Inside the raging blaze, I slowly closed my eyes. In the end, Julia, the fox spirit who sustained herself by draining men's vital essence, was burned to ashes. I survived. It was luck. It was Daniel who saved me. With her final strength, just as thick smoke clouded my mind, she entered my body, helped me escape the sea of flames, and even used my arms to hold myself tightly. Only after making sure I was safe did she leave my body. I clearly felt her soul gradually fading into the air until it scattered completely. Before she vanished, she said goodbye in a way I couldn't see, only hear. "Ethan, if it weren't for those 5,000 yuan you gave me back in university, my mom might have died long ago. But now, I won't be able to fulfill my filial duty anymore." Strangely enough, right after the fox spirit disappeared, my father's illness began to improve. When I returned to the village, the half-terror even told me that a noble person was hidden in my fate. Only I knew the truth: that noble person was Daniel. I had saved his mother's life, and he had saved mine. That's just how life works, cause and effect, intertwined in ways we can never fully see.